the matriculated nobility of Saaremaa, Oeselian immatriculated nobility.
Labadiena, brangus kolegos! Šiandien mes norime jums pristatyti pranešimą tema Oesele immatriculated dvarininkija, Saaremaa salos. Good afternoon, dear colleagues. My name is Igor Korobov.
My name is Artur Madavad. We have been working on the topic of the Baltic nobility since 2012.
Today we would like to share with you a presentation on the topic of Oeselian immatriculated nobility.
The island of Oesel, also known as Saaremaa, and the nobility of Oesel is a unique phenomenon not only in the Baltic region, but also in world culture. The northern island in the Baltic Sea proved to be the center not only of the island's mentality, but also a rather autonomous unit. Despite the similarities to the Ostsean people, the local knighthood had several peculiarities and differed from the nobility of the mainland Livonian corporations. The Oeselian nobility or knighthood, Oeselesche Ritterschaft, was one of the four associations belonging to the concept of the Ostsea knighthood. In addition to it, there were Estland, Livonia and Courland, together with Piltene, knighthoods or nobility. The first Estonian matricula was compiled in 1741. 26 families were included in it. The term immatriculation should also be explained. These are the full-fledged noble families of local landowners, recorded in the matriculus, i.e. in a special list. It is this particular class that our first and also our second book was devoted to. The Oeselian immatriculated knighthood or nobility is a closed body of matriculus, i.e. special list, of full-fledged noble families. It is only natural that the knights who had come to the Baltic Sea region during the 13th century Crusade era, as well as the orders and the bishop's vassals, should have been of Nordic descent. Buxhöheden, Tiesenhausen, Lieven, Lode were representatives of ancient families known from around this time. Later on in the lists of knighthood there appeared representatives of many countries of the European continent: Germans, Danes, Swedes, Russians, Poles, French, and so on. As well as titled persons of different dignity: lordship, princess, counts, barons, edler fons. This is what the house of the Oeselian knights looked like. It was in this building that the landtags, meaning the meetings of the immatriculated nobility, were usually held once every 3 years, at which all important issues relating to the life of the local knighthood were decided. Since the local nobility had extensive privileges under all the rulers, this was also the place where issues concerning the life of the entire island were decided. This is what the house of the Oeselian knighthood looks like today. It is beautifully preserved. This is what the whole of the Oeselian knighthood used to look like, where the landtags of the local nobility held their meetings. When we talk about Estonian history, we keep missing one point. What is Estonian history? It is the history of conquests. This is how we study history by periods. Danish time, Livonian order, Swedish time, being part of the Russian Empire, and so on. Thus, we study the history of the countries that conquered the land. But for some reason, no one is saying that a class, a stratum, a group, or whatever you want to call it, which exercised real power here, was formed after 1219. They are descendants of those knights who came here with the Danish king Valdemar II. They formed a sub-ethnos. By sub-ethnos, we mean a compact residence of a part of a large nation, which is already slightly different from it in language, culture, etc. It is a paradox. We do not know the history of those people who actually ruled this land for more than 700 years. Under all the rulers, these knightly and the noble families had privileges that allowed them to maintain power and their traditions. Because the island was divided between the bishopric of Oeselviek and the Livonian order, a special form of knightly land tenure developed here, which consisted of a preferential right to rent. In 1559, the island became a Danish possession. After a while, the Danish king Frederick II gave it to his younger brother, Duke Magnus. Duke Magnus became the vassal of Ivan the Terrible in 1570, and later married his niece, Maria Staritska. After his death, the island was once again placed under the Danish crown. The island thus belonged to the Danes from 1559 until 1645. Please note, the percentage of knightly manors did not increase much during that time, because the bishops' and orders' lands went to the treasury. After 1645, the island became part of the Swedish kingdom. Gradually, however, the lands on the island passed into the personal possession of Magnus de la Gardie, a member of the Board of Regents under the young King Charles XI. Reduction is the process of returning to the state, meaning the Swedish crown, land previously given to the nobility. We are only interested in the reduction that was carried out by King Charles XI of Sweden in the Baltic region. It reminds me of a divorce, where the dishonest husband demands back all the gifts he gave to his wife during all the time they had lived together. What's more, he happens to have all the receipts for those gifts. He knows exactly what he gave to her and when. But even this is not enough for him. If his wife has some things left over, but she doesn't have receipts for them and cannot prove that she bought them with her own money, these things are also taken away from her. But the most interesting thing is that after the divorce, the husband and wife continue to live together and keep a household together. How is a wife supposed to regard such a man after that? The reduction, although it did fill the coffers of the Swedish state, undermined the loyalty of the Ostsean knighthood. This was used to its full advantage by the Russian Tsar Peter the Great, when, during the Great Northern War, he promised to return all the lands which had been confiscated to the nobles. Under Russian rule, the first matricula of the Ostsean knighthoods were drawn up. In 1739 it also became possible to draw up a matricula for the Oeselian knighthoods, which was finalized in 1741. Although attempts to draw up a matriculus were made in Swedish times. This slide shows the first page of the first matriculus of Oesel. Here we see the ratio of the untitled and titled nobility of the Oeselian knighthood. Percentage of baronian title to total Oeselian nobility. The letters are an abbreviation of a famous biblical saying, "The word of God endures forever," which played the role of a Lutheran motto. The eagle was the symbol of Saint John the Evangelist, the patron saint of the bishopric of Oeselvik, and was associated with the name of Ahrensburg, Eagle City. The crane referred to Kuressaare. This toponym originally referred to the whole island and survived as the name of its capital. The preference was given to the crane, most likely to soften the heraldic reminder of subordination to the bishop. At first, the coat of arms of the bishopric of Oeselvik was a symbol of chivalry, an eagle of St. John with a halo and a ribbon in its paws. In the summer of 1524, the bishop Johann Kievel tried to assert his rights and those of his remaining congregation amidst the triumphant Reformation, while the knighthood was in opposition to him. It was then that the knighthood, as a sign of its autonomy, introduced a seal with its own coat of arms, the crest of which, an eagle with a halo, nevertheless referred to the authority of the bishop. The first report about the new seal is dated July 29th, 1524. The bishop treated it as a novelty, which contradicts the legend according to which the coat of arms was bestowed upon the knighthood by himself. The oldest imprint dates back to February 25th, 1525. It should be said that this report is based on two of our books. The first, Estland's Immatriculated Nobility, published in 2018, and the second, Oeselian Immatriculated Nobility, which was published in 2022. A third volume on the Livonian Immatriculated Nobility is also planned. Another peculiarity of the Baltic sub-ethnos is that it no longer exists. It has been dissolved into the greater German ethnos and dispersed around the world. However, there are still members of the Ostseans sub-ethnos who cherish the memory of their great ancestors. This report and these books are a tribute to the men who exercised total power in the Baltic Sea region for 700 years, and who played a major role in the history of Denmark, Sweden and Russia.